You guys aren't going to believe it, but yes, the Texans and Tyreek Hill are still linked up for a potential trade. I'm still hearing and seeing people write about this, and this was something that was really big in the offseason, with the Texans losing Tank Dell last year and losing Stephon Diggs in free agency. Everyone was writing that the disgruntled wide receiver from Miami, which is Tyreek Hill, that he would be looking for a new place and that the Texans should trade for him. I was seeing a bunch of all that. Ever since then, though, the Texans have obviously drafted 2 wide receivers and traded for Christian Kirk. So we really don't need a wide receiver, even with Tank Dell out most of next year. But lo and behold, we have another report talking about why the Texans could be linked to Tyreek Hill. And I don't understand it because Texans really don't need another wide receiver at this point. But it's whatever. So the guy goes on to say that it makes sense for the Dolphins to hold on to him until June 2nd or later. That's when, if you trade him after June 2nd, the consequences of the cap hit won't be as bad. And so that's why the Dolphins would trade for him after that. But at this point, at the time of this video coming out, it is past that date. This article was written, I believe, a couple of days before that. But for now, Hill has about $28 million in unallocated bonus money that will hit the cap. So trading him before the June 1st would result in like $12 million dead money, and the Dolphins don't want to do that. Regardless of that, and why the Dolphins would do this, obviously I think Dolphins would do this because he doesn't want to be there, it seems like, and might as well get something for him while you can. Especially now that it's post-June 2nd, the cap hit won't be nearly as bad. So Dolphins would make this trade. He doesn't write like a specific trade of what the Texans would have to give up, but Texans, I don't see why they'd make this trade. And there's 2 reasons why, mainly. One is we don't need another wide receiver on this team. Yeah, you can say you're not too confident with the group going forward because there are a bunch of unproven guys on this roster. Even with Christian Kirk, he's been here and done that, but he's getting older. He's not what he once was. Nico Collins is really the only real, concrete, he's going to be good. But even with that, he's struggled with injuries at least every year in his career. Hopefully this year will be different. But you look at the wide receiver depth for the Texans. We have Nico Collins, Christian Kirk, Jaden Higgins, Jalen Noel, the 2 rookies out of Iowa State. We signed Justin Watson. We still have Xavier Hutchinson. We still have John Mechie. And we signed Braxton Berrios. So I don't see why the Texans would make this trade. You have Nico Collins, you have Christian Kirk, you have 2 rookie receivers, you have Xavier Hutchinson and John Mechie, who I still think can be decent players on this team. Will they get the opportunity because of all the players we have? Maybe not. That's why I think the Texans shouldn't have drafted 2 wide receivers and should have used one of those picks on another lineman, but that's neither here nor there. Another reason Texans I don't think would make this trade is because of the cap situation. He's owed $28 million next year. Yes, the Dolphins would eat up some dead money, but I believe it would be under $10 million. So why would the Texans would be over the cap in that situation if we got Tyreek Hill? Or it would be just under. Either way, we have cap flexibility this year and next year. It seems like Nick Caserio likes to keep it that way, not overpay for guys. Rework contracts when he sees fit to stay under the cap. So I don't see the Texans doing it. Why would they go over the cap for Tyreek Hill, who at this point, he is getting older. I'm not saying he won't be good. I think he'll be a really good wide receiver again next year. And you're getting in a guy who has had off-the-field issues before. So who's to say it would be different here? I know we had Stephon Diggs last year, and he seemed to be all right with us, but just like that, he's gone. He didn't even last us the whole year. I know it's not his fault, obviously, but yeah, I don't know. I just don't see why the Texans would need to do this. Because also the thing with Tyreek Hill is he's a very fast wide receiver. Obviously, he's shifty. He's a deep threat. The Texans have Tank Dell, who is not nearly as fast as Tyreek Hill, but he is very shifty. And it's like you kind of have that already on this team. You have Nico Collins, who is a deep threat. You have Jaden Higgins, who is also a deep threat. And they're big. They're just like big bodies, deep threats on the field. You have Jalen Noel, who is kind of like the more Tyreek Hill, Tank Dell type. Slot, quick, deep threat. Who the Texans are apparently very high on. So I don't think there's really a need to make this trade if you're the Texans at all. And I just don't see this trade happening, not one bit, like not even close. Do I think Tyreek Hill will be traded before the season starts? I don't even think he will, honestly. Unless some team wants to get him and has had their eye on him for a little bit. And the Dolphins were waiting till post June 2nd to make the trade. But I don't know. I just don't see Texans pulling the trigger on this one. We don't really need a wide receiver. There's been reports about why we should get rid of John Mechie and Xavier Hutchinson because they just don't fit this roster anymore, it seems like. Which that in and of itself I think is dumb. I think you have good, cheap options who can be, at worst, your third-string wide receivers who is really good. And they're cheap. So why would you trade them away? I don't know. Let me know down below if you disagree with that. And let me know what you agree with, disagree with the Tyreek Hill situation. Should the Texans trade for him? Should the Dolphins keep him? Do you think he'll get traded? Let me know down below.